Welcome back to Chapter Chats. In this episode, we're exploring Chapter 10 of Chuck Hodell's ISD from the Ground Up, a no-nonsense approach to instructional design. This chapter takes us into the world of adult learners, their motivations, experiences, challenges, and how instructional designers can best serve this diverse population. If you design learning for adults, this conversation will give you plenty to reflect on and to apply. So, here we go. You highlight that many instructional designers spend their entire careers designing for adults. What are the top 3 mindset shifts that you believe are essential when making that transition from designing for youth to designing for adults?
Well, the one thing you have to think about, Denise, is adults are as singular as any other population. When we look at juvenile populations, whether we're K-12 or preschool or anything else we're looking at in that particular venue, they certainly have things that are different than adults. The way they have to learn, the way they approach this, their experience, their technology skills, which embarrass all of us, and all the other things that go with this. So in this chapter, we're not saying that everybody teaches only adults. Let me say that right up front. But the notion is we are now teaching us. We are teaching adults like ourselves. And probably one of the biggest things we can remember and think about as designers is this notion of adults don't like to waste time. Adults like to get in, get something done, and move on. And traditional learning experiences are not always the safest place for these people to feel and to learn. And we have to admit that many adults have learning disabilities at some level or of some function, even if they don't realize it. So I certainly had it. I'm dyslexic and other things. I couldn't read. I couldn't do a lot of things, yet I persevered and was able to get through. But as we're looking at populations, we have to assume that each one of these folks in some way is going to be looking at this experience and learning and thinking, why am I here? Why am I investing this time? Is it mandated? Do I have to feel good about being here? Do I have to participate? All the things that goes through your head when you're sitting in something is going through their head when they're sitting through something that you have designed. So whether it's online in a learning management system or in a classroom or a lunch and learn or anything else that you're doing with micro-learning, you still have to remember that each of these adults brings their entire life to the situation, and they will reflect that in their learning.
You mentioned that adult learners carry rich experiences and often emotional baggage from past learning. How should designers account for this in their analysis and course design?
Well, as I've said before, adults are us. We all have life experience. We have positives, we have negatives. Some of us have very positive educational backgrounds and experiences. Some of us have pretty awful ones. And I have to admit that my K-12 experiences were not positive and were not enforcing in terms of me wanting to go to college or do anything else. I mean, I really did not enjoy high school, and I couldn't wait to get out and go out and work. And you're going to find that when people have bad experiences or negative experiences in the classroom or in learning through their K-12 years, then they're going to carry most of that into anything they have to do in terms of being an adult and participating in learning. So when you think about the fact that 60-70% of things that adults take now is mandated, then you have to work under the assumption there's going to be some resistance at some level by some of your learning population, because this is not a place where they feel safe, or it's not something they feel they want to invest their time in. So there are ways to think about that as designers. How do you engage people? How do you use learning approaches that don't require them to perhaps sit in the classroom? That how much of this can you reasonably put online? How much can you do in micro-learning? How much can you do in informal learning? And perhaps taking out the legacy approaches to teaching adults will serve you in a very positive way as a designer. And not always, but sometimes it will. But once again, I think you have to realize that these people are just like you. They are adults and they have a lot of baggage, and sometimes it comes into the learning experience.
Yeah. From generational learning to learning disabilities, you cover a lot of ground in this chapter. What's one challenge you think designers still aren't fully addressing when it comes to inclusivity in adult learning?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see in design is we are talking at adults and not talking with adults. You have to include them in these conversations. If you're just going to lecture and just stand there for however long, or just make videos and make people watch them without having an opportunity for discussion, then you've missed at least half of the opportunity you have with adults. They want to engage. They want to have their voice heard. They want to participate if it's something that they feel is of value. And designers can work with these populations and come up with answers. You're never going to get 100% in any population, but you can push your numbers up 80, 90% of participation and people that will engage with you. But don't fall back on the old notion that you can stand in front of them and yell at them. It's not going to happen. Those days are over, designers. We now have to engage them. They have to be active participants in learning, and they have to feel like their opinions and their participation are valued.
Good points. The 10 guidelines for designing for adult learners section is full of actionable advice. If a designer could only apply one of these guidelines tomorrow, which would you say makes the bigger difference in learner success?
Well, I think that all of them are important. And I'm not going to go through them here because you can see them in that chapter and read through and spend some time with it. But I think if you just pick one and focus on it, you have started the process of inclusion and getting them to engage with you. All 10 are important. There'll be different importance levels with different populations and different content areas, and also in how you implement. So you're going to have to look at these a little bit and say, okay, where can I fit that in where I need to fit it? But I think the most important single thing is don't think that these are children. Don't think that this is a population that is perfectly comfortable with you talking at them. They are not. And look at all these other things that can help you as a designer to be there for that population. They really want to learn most of the things that we provide to them, but many times we don't give them a way to participate and feel like their participation is valued and necessary.
This chapter walks through Knoll's principles. Which of these do you think designers most often overlook or struggle to implement effectively, and why?
Well, I think Knowles, he was onto a lot of things, and we can argue about whether you agree with this whole notion of having a separate kind of identity for adult learners as opposed to other populations. But I think the most important thing that he's pointing out in summation of all of what I see from his work is that we have to be very clear that this is a different learning population. We have to respect them. We have to listen to them. We have to engage them. We can't waste their time. We need to ask their opinions. Think about designing a course for adults as creating a conversation. Think about everyone being a peer. I always teach as a peer to my students, and I also design as a peer when I'm looking at how I'm going to facilitate a course. And I think it's really important that you don't place yourself above or that you talk down or look down at these populations, because that will get you nowhere. Look at them as a reflection of who you are and think about the things that are important to you, the things that you don't like to do as an adult in this environment. So I think Knowles was on to something. And if you ever take an entire course on the adult learner with me or someone else, we'll blow this up in 14 different directions and look at it at a higher level. But I think for this chapter and up, just consider the fact that, yes, we have to pay attention to adults as learners. They are different. We need to think about it a little differently as designers. But most of the time, all of you are good enough designers and certainly creative enough to come up with things that will capture their imagination and engage them. And I encourage you to do that.
Great advice. And thanks so much, Chuck, for sharing your insights with us. We'll see you in the next chapter chat.